What prompted you to? I know you're involved in a lot of stuff. What prompted you to take the time to sit down and write this book?
Well, it's a series of three. I'm contracted to do three of them. This is the first one, and it's here's the short answer. The short answer is I've been doing media and politics for 17 years, and every time I walk away from a show and talk about the topic outside of the show, and I realize that if I talk to 10 people, maybe only one or two will have any idea what the real substance behind that story is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought people can, you can entertain somebody and at the same time educate them. You do it on your show. It's what you do. It's what you've been doing for years. You entertain them, and then you say, "Oh, by the way, you might want to know this."
Right.
And that's the way these books are written. They deliver. You can sit on a beach, read Law and Disorder, and I number one, I think you'll be thoroughly entertained. But number two, I think that you'll walk away having real questions about some of the topics there that corporate media, Michael, can't tell them. They just can't tell these stories. I mean, how can corporate media tell a story about Pfizer Pharmaceutical killing 100 people in one state when they're making all their money from the Pfizer advertising?
What do you say? I think your book is timely given the mess that we're in right now. But what do you see with the regulatory system in this country? It's already full of holes. It barely works. That's what always makes me laugh when these right-wingers talk about they're going to get rid of all the regulations, and I want to say, what the hell regulations you're talking about, pal? But what do you see happening here on the cusp of Trump world? I'm kind of concerned.
Well, I think in the past what we've had, Michael, is we've had at least the show. We've had the act. The act works like this. Mr. FDA, you're making $200,000 a year. Gee whiz, would you take a look at our drug? And oh, by the way, in another year we have an opening that we pay $350,000. Do you have any interest in that?
Right.
So that's a nuance. Now we're going to move directly away from the nuance.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be any need for the nuance. It's going to be direct graft.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be just in-your-face kind of corruption. So I suppose the issue comes from at least there was some dignified effort to try to cover up the corruption. You would pay off some, what I call a biostitute, some character who works for the FDA or the EPA who will say anything that corporate America wants them to say, and the return was they always got paid on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not really worried about the niceties. Now the whole process has become so vulgar from the very top. I mean, you have this really maniacal, vulgar character, and the issue of hiring. It all flows from the top.
Mm-hmm.
Every organization takes on the character of the person at the top.
That's right.
And so that's what we're going to be faced with is just rampant vulgarity that's also corruption at its very worst. So there'll be no more niceties.
When you couple that with the political point of view, I don't know Trump's. I don't think anybody knows Trump's political point of view. But the political point of view of the people who are clustering around him now with this Sig Heil crap and the anti-everything except white males, that combination of corporate America, I realize this country has always been close to going fascist, and now the door is wide open. But that's what has me concerned, that combination, exactly what you're talking about, the corruption.
Yeah, I mean, if you've read all the stories and the short stories and all the great writings about Berlin, 1934 through 1939,
right?
And it first of all begins with education and what we call the cultural dumbdown nowadays, and that is that the cultural dumbdown is that there really isn't anything important unless it involves something that Kim Kardashian may be wearing to some awards.
Yeah.
We become a morass of cultural disaster, and that is dumbed out. That's dumbed down the American public the same way that the Germans were dumbed down just from pure absolute lack of education because there was no educational infrastructure You see, after that First World War. So there's a lot of similarities here. It's playing itself out differently. We've got corporate media that really is kind of the vehicle for that cultural dumbdown. And so it's a great opportunity. I mean, if you're a fascist nowadays and you have a good populist kind of message, this is your day. These are the days that you'll prosper.
Yeah, my God. The multi-billionaire Swanson brothers in your book, in any relation to the Koch brothers by chance?
Absolutely. I'd like to say that we have this notion that the Koch brothers are really the only two multi-billionaires that are out there doing horrible things every day. It's not just the Koch brothers that are restructuring democracy, not from the White House down, but from the county commissioner up.
Right.
Howard Dean, as crazy as he's become now, there was a time when he was absolutely, pretty solid. And during that time, he was saying the only way to gain control of politics is that we have a 50-state strategy. And he was saying this 20 years ago, Michael. Mm-hmm. He was saying 20 years ago, we have to win county commissioner races. We have to win local state judge races. And then Bill Clinton, who was a disaster for the Democrats. I mean, absolute disaster. And I've been saying it for, 10 years, so there's nothing, I'm not saying it simply because we've been proven to be right, but the disaster was Bill Clinton thought the power of the White House was all the Democrats needed to stay alive, while you had Howard Dean saying, you better look over here because there's a movement taking place by the Republicans, by the very fringe, regressive Republicans that were driven by Lee Atwater. And Lee Atwater really formulated the 50-state strategy that the Democrats ignored. I'd say if we were to gain anything out of all of this, I would say the best thing that happened to us is we might be rid of the Clintons forever.
Yeah, right. So well, you don't know. You don't know. Just when you think they're gone, the coffin door swings open, and here they come again.
Exactly.
Here they come again. Damn! I just had a very important question. It's very important to me. Well, getting back to the regulatory situation, it has been a failure. We know that. We also know that it's the only bulwark that the public has against predatory capitalism. Now, it's going to be shredded. It's already shredded. It's going to be kicked to the curb. What the hell is going to happen? I mean, like I said, I'm asking you to look into the crystal ball.
Well,
you've been there.
Yeah. I'm going to be busy, and people, unfortunately, Michael, this is no advertisement, but there's only a handful of people in the entire country that handle these complex mass tort cases.
Oh no, I know.
They're very good, but there aren't that many anymore, and because the frustration of going in front of a federal judge that has really never been a judge at all, has barely been an attorney. Mm-hmm. The typical Republican appointments that we're seeing right now are political hacks. Mm-hmm. They've lived within the system. They've never accomplished much, but they've lived within the system of Republican politics, and they've prospered that way. Maybe they were, a bundler for this cat or that cat. So these are the people who are now wearing black robes in federal court. So the people that have been doing what I do for such a long time, we saw that 92 of those should have been filled immediately, and they weren't. And now we have 109 that need to be filled, and they're going to be filled with, with the Trump type of political hacks. There's no other way for me to describe it. So it's a frustrating process, and you say, these cases typically are I'm involved with them constantly, and you're spending $6, $7, $8 million just to get the project to trial, and then some guy who was the handpick of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the judge who's listening to the case and saying, no, I'm sorry. Well, not even I'm sorry. He's saying, no, consumers lose, corporate America wins. So that's what I see developing. The good news is, the resilience of the people who do it at this level they're kind of in it for a while, even though it's frustrating. And these next 10 years are going to be There are going to be cases by such huge numbers that some of them are going to hit. You will have some corporations that pay for their corruption and bad acts because now they feel like they can operate so freely, Mike.
Right.
We saw it. We saw the same thing with Reagan. They felt like they could operate without anybody looking over their shoulders. We saw the same thing with Bush. Mm-hmm. And so we stayed really busy. This maybe 20 or 30 lawyers throughout the entire nation that do these cases. We stayed very busy all in between that time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's gonna repeat itself. You'll have some young trial lawyers coming up saying, "Look, this is really the line in the sand, and if we don't do this, then the process just continues to escalate worse and worse."
Can you think of anything worse than Jeff Sessions as the U.S. Attorney mm-hmm. General?
Chief. Well, Jeff Sessions, no, the answer is no.
No.
No. He was handpicked by Karl Rove, as you know, to deconstruct the justice system in Alabama. He did it very well. A consumer in Alabama has about less than a 5% chance of actually recovering anything, no matter how bad it may be, whether it's a death from a bad pharmaceutical, whether Wall Streeter has raided their pension program, whether DuPont has destroyed their waterway and their drinking water. The consumer's chance of really prevailing in a state like Alabama is somewhere around 5 to 10%. Jeff Sessions created that for the state of Alabama. Mm-hmm. He was the handpick of Karl Rove to do exactly that, and now he'll do it nationally.